Hi, in this playlist, we've been exploring different ways you might want to use to create an app that others can use. Now, let's first place our loose term app into two main categories. There's web app and there's app. So, web app versus app. Web app is something that you run in a browser, no download required. An app is something you download and install. Web app pluses, no install, more easily created. A browser does a lot for you, like sound, drawing, animation, the UI, what you see, camera, so many things. Less worry about will it run in user's device. On the minus side, you don't really have access to the device, such as the file system. Finally, you have app pluses. You do have access to the device, such as the file system. You can store stuff, you can read stuff. It could help protect your intellectual property. Minuses: has to be downloaded, installed. Will it run in that device? And depending on the device, how well will it run? In our past videos, we did explore using Neutralino a bit. My personal opinion, it was a bit disappointing. Yes, you have somewhat access to the local file system, but there's some gotchas. It does nothing to protect your intellectual property because basically it just wraps your web page. It wraps your web app, your HTML, your CSS, your JavaScript. So it's essentially as if you were downloading and installing your web app. But you lose all the convenience of what standardized browsers give you as a developer, because instead it uses something called WebView 2, and that works better or worse depending on what device and which OS. Now then we also explored Flutter and Dart. So Flutter uses Dart programming language to compile and build into an executable. I would say it goes a much longer way toward helping protect your intellectual property. In our test, which was the 2D robot game, it did as good as our web app version, except I noticed the projectile sounds was a WAV file instead of browser generated. And so I noticed the sounds seem unrelated to the actual projectiles and rate of fire. Now, maybe there's a better way to make that sound happen. I don't know. In this age of AI, what was very cool was that I could just hand all of the current web app code, the HTML, the CSS, the JavaScript, and I got back the equivalent of a Flutter Dart project, and I didn't have to write a single line of code or care, how all that worked. I did specify, hey, because the original robot web app was nicely architected, it had layers and it had the different files that were cohesive, and I did ask the right questions, and I got back a similar project in Flutter Dart. It wasn't just all thrown into one file, but that's up to you, the developer, to guide AI. There is another way, and I'll discuss that in some later video. It's something that I actually chose to do with the Ancient Halls game that I'm doing, client-server web app. But first, let's continue our direction and trying different tech stacks. So up next is Tauri.
Apps like Discord, Slack, and VS Code all run on WebTech, but there's a problem. They use Electron, which bundles Chrome and Node.js with every app. That makes apps big, heavy, and memory hungry. Tauri was created to fix that. Instead of bundling an entire browser, it uses your system's built-in web view, making apps way smaller and faster.
So we are going to take our tried and true first project. This time, let's jump right to the 2D robot shooting game. So I've got it up here, and let's make the canvas as big as we can. Let's add in some maze. And let's do a few little vertical ones. Okay, and we will have the why are these grayed out? That's it. Okay. Let's do evade mode. So it's a smart, see, it doesn't bump into. And then we'll have the robots come in. And then we will have them fight each other. Now notice that the sound, pay attention to the sound and the rate of fire. Okay. And then we're going to compare that to when we do it with Tauri. All right, so we're going to take this, let's get started. We are going to drag all these files into Google Gemini, and then we're going to give them a nice little prompt. Let's start with this, and I'll have this available for you guys after I publish the video. So this is for Gemini, right? Can you read all these files? Is it possible to create a GitHub repository and use GitHub Actions to build a Tauri app that wraps these files? Will GitHub Actions runners have everything required that I don't have to include in my repo, just correctly configured build file, etc.? For Windows, once I have the downloadable app, is it expected that I have that the target have WebView 2 and possibly a Microsoft redistributable library? Is there another way to package the result with less dependencies on the target system? For Linux, is it possible to create an app image or Flatpak or Snap? Let's make sure that we understand what we're talking about here. So roughly there's two ways to ship an app and install an app that you've created. One way is you actually create an app that has everything that it absolutely needs to run, and you install it and it runs, okay? However, this means it's big. Or you can have an app that's your part of it, but it expects certain help from the operating system. Like for instance, WebView 2, the Microsoft VSS, VC++ redistributable package, and other things like that. In Linux, it would be something similar. So there's two ways basically to do this. This makes for smaller apps that are installed. This one makes for bigger apps. So let's see what Google Gemini had to say. As far as our code is concerned, it's straight HTML, CSS, JavaScript. It's just going to wrap it. Easy. That's the easy part. And no, we don't need to add anything special to our just our files. And like if you've been following the videos, it's very similar to what we've already done. So okay, now again, this is what I just drew for you. You can do it two different ways. You can supply everything for Windows and or Linux, or you can not supply everything. All right, so since the video is getting long, we're going to call this part one, and we will jump right in and do this in part two. I'll see you then.